On August 19, 1987, a peaceful summer day in the quiet English town of Hungerford turned into one of the most horrifying chapters in British history. A 27-year-old man named Michael Ryan, armed with legally owned firearms, went on a shooting rampage that would leave 16 people dead, including his own mother and an unarmed police officer, and many more injured. It was a tragedy that stunned the nation and led to sweeping changes in UK gun laws. Michael Ryan lived in Hungerford with his mother. He was quiet, introverted, and known for his fascination with guns and survivalism. He held a legal license for multiple firearms, including a Beretta 9mm pistol, a Nordincou Type 56 semi-automatic rifle, and an M1 carbine. He often practiced at local shooting clubs and even showed some of his weapons to colleagues at a temporary job he held, but no one could have imagined what he was planning or whether he was planning at all. That morning, Ryan left his home and drove west to Savannah Forest in Wood. At around 12:30 p.m., 35-year-old Susan Godfrey was picnicking there with her two small children. Ryan, dressed in black and carrying weapons, approached them. He forced Susan to walk away from her children and deeper into the forest. Moments later, he shot her 13 times and left her body behind. Her children were later found unharmed by a passerby, confused and frightened. One of them told the woman, "A man in black killed my mummy." Shortly afterward, Ryan drove to a nearby petrol station. He attempted to shoot the cashier, but his weapon either jammed or the magazine fell out. He then fled east toward Hungerford, unaware that his day of violence had only just begun. At 12:45 p.m., he arrived back at his home on Southview in Hungerford. Witnesses saw him looking distressed as he entered. Minutes later, gunshots rang out. Ryan had killed the family dogs. He then gathered ammunition, a flak jacket, and survival gear, poured petrol inside the house, and set it on fire. Flames soon engulfed the home. As he walked out of the burning house, Ryan began shooting at random. He killed two of his neighbors, Roland and Sheila Mason, and seriously injured a 14-year-old girl who had come outside to investigate the noise. Another elderly neighbor scolded him for scaring everyone to death, but Ryan did not shoot her. He moved toward the nearby school playing fields, shooting and killing Kenneth Clements, a man out walking his dog with his family. The family managed to escape, but Clements died at the scene. By now, the police had started receiving frantic emergency calls, but due to poor communication systems and phone network overload, they struggled to link the incidents together. At 12:58 p.m., the first police officer to arrive, PC Roger Brereton, attempted to block the street. As he sat in his patrol car radioing for backup, Ryan shot him in the chest. The car crashed into a telegraph pole. Moments later, Ryan shot him again with the semi-automatic rifle, killing him. Ryan then continued down the road, shooting at anyone in sight. A mother and daughter in a Volvo were both hit, but the mother managed to reverse the car to safety. An ambulance crew responding to calls was also targeted but escaped serious injury. As the chaos unfolded, George White was returning from Newbury after receiving a desperate call from a friend. He drove into Southview and was shot dead. His passenger, Ivor Jackson, was critically injured but survived by pretending to be dead. The horror continued as Ryan shot and killed 84-year-old Abdul Khan in his garden, wounded another pedestrian, and then fatally shot his own mother when she returned from errands. She had called out to him, pleading for him to stop. Instead, he shot her 4 times. He walked toward Hungerford Common, where he killed Francis Butler and then taxi driver Marcus Barnard. Along Priory Avenue, Douglas and Kathleen Wainwright were caught in the rampage while visiting their son. Douglas was killed and Kathleen injured. Ryan's path of destruction continued through the town, with bullets striking cars, houses, and anyone unlucky enough to be nearby. He entered a house on Priory Road and killed Jack Gibbs and his wife Myrtle, who died 2 days later. Sandra Hill, just 22 years old, was shot and killed in her car. Ian Plale, driving with his wife and 2 young children, was also fatally wounded. By 1:45 p.m., a police helicopter arrived and began broadcasting warnings to residents. Hungerford was in lockdown, but Michael Ryan was still on the move. He finally entered John O'Gaunt's school, closed for summer break. Police surrounded the building by 4 p.m., unsure of how many weapons he still had or what his next move would be. Ryan spoke briefly with a police sergeant, admitting that he had killed many and hinting at regret. "Hungerford must be a bit of a mess," he said. When the officer mentioned his mother's death, Ryan replied, "That was a mistake." As the hours passed, Ryan became increasingly agitated. "I killed all those people," he shouted, "but I haven't the guts to blow my own brains out." Then, at 6:52 p.m., a single gunshot echoed from inside the school. At 8:10 p.m., police entered the barricaded room and found Ryan dead from a self-inflicted wound to the head. In the aftermath, the country mourned. Funerals were held. Investigations were launched. Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher visited Hungerford the following day, acknowledging the tragedy and promising to examine gun laws. A formal inquiry found that police were under emergency lines were overwhelmed, and Ryan's firearm licenses had been issued despite no deep background checks. As a direct result, the Firearms Act, 1988, was passed, banning semi-automatic centerfire rifles and limiting shotgun capacity. Nearly 48,000 weapons were surrendered during the following amnesty. To this day, the Hungerford Massacre remains one of the deadliest mass shootings in British history. 16 innocent lives were taken, dozens forever changed, and an entire nation left asking how such horror could happen in a place so ordinary.